The Sunfallen Road, Chapter 31. I began to wander, as some vampires have been known to do, without even knowing where they are going. Although I was no longer a vampire, I was still of the River Clan, and I flowed without knowing my destination. I wandered, I ate, I slept. After a time, I began to consider what to do. I wondered if returning to Etienne-Gabert would help me find my way. There seemed to be no better course of action, and so I began to search for it once again. Although it had been tremendously difficult the first time, I found that valley again with hardly a glance at the path I was taking. I found it again one night when the moon was high in the sky, and I saw the gate once again. Uriel stood there, and he looked surprised. I was likewise surprised to be able to perceive him. Melpomene, why have you returned? I raised my head to look at him. I would speak with Solomon. As is your privilege, but why? I need to move on, I said. My husband is dead. I have spent 2.5 centuries on this earth. I want to move on, Uriel. He took my hand. Come, I will bring you to Solomon. He led me through the streets of the city I had been through before, only this time it was as it had been, a city of incomparable beauty and complex simplicity. He brought me to the Temple of Lights and into Solomon's domain. The Holy King was reading, and he looked up with a smile. He bowed to Uriel, who accepted the gesture with a sad smile, and turned to me. Melpomene, what help may I be to you? Uriel squeezed my arm. How strange! His touch was like the touch of no human or vampire, yet it was more human than human, and left the chamber. I looked at Solomon, whose white robe was like the tides of eternity, was clean and perfect like the most sinless soul. I can't go on without him, I said simply. He came very near to a frown. You can, you simply do not want to. I do not feel there is anything more on earth that I can give. I want to move on. And the world has moved on, Melpomene, he replied. The times have changed since you came to be. I nodded. What can I do? Do you know you are the first to return to this temple out of all those who have sought the gates before you, said Solomon. I was surprised. I did not know. All the others have gone their own way and sought other paths in life. You are the only one who has returned. Why do you think that is? I shook my head. I didn't know. He came towards me then and looked at me. I looked back at him with wondering eyes. You seek the comfort of the One. You seek to be free of the chains that bind all living beings, the chains of change and pain. You have been changed and changeless. You want to be at peace. These are things the One can bring. I closed my eyes. Will it give them to me? Of course not, he replied. Not for free. Nothing comes for free, Melpomene. What can you give that will earn what you desire? Anything, I said. He took my hand and led me into the temple. We entered a library that looked very like the one I had had in my home in Chicago, and we sat down in white-skirted chairs at a round table that was painted with a strange scene of spirits in the air. He gestured to the table. These are the spirits who have found their way through Etienne-Gabert but did not survive. The spirits began to move, and though I heard no sound, the shapes their mouths made told me that they were wailing or singing. They are lost in the ethereal plane, redeemed but unable to find their way to the realm of the One. I looked at him and instantly grasped what he wanted of me. You wish me to ferry them. Yes, if you do this, you can be detached from the physical realm, and you will one day take your place among them. I considered. I longed for peace, it was true, but I was as calculating as ever. as I had been when I was a vampire. For how long? 100 years. 10. 50, he said. 20, I replied. 25, and that is my final offer, he said, a shrewd look upon his face. I nodded. Very well. Uriel entered the library as though he had been waiting outside for just this moment. He nodded at Solomon and extended his hand to me. Come with me, Melpomene, he said, and I went with him, but not before I knelt before Solomon and kissed his hands in gratitude. For 25 years, I guided the souls who passed through Etzion-Geber to the majestic realm of the One. Uriel advised me when I needed his advice, but mostly I traveled. What I learned along those roads, the roads through the Ethereals, which were not always beautiful, was that the souls who reached the gates of Etzion-Geber and passed the Sunfallen Road had been redeemed, but their physical bodies had not survived the impact of the journey. Their rightful place was in the heavens, but they were lost, and no one who had not passed the Sunfallen Road could guide them to where they were meant to be. I went back and forth, and gradually I began to wonder what had happened to my body and who would do this job when I had moved on. I asked Uriel these questions, and he smiled. You still have your body, he told me. You have gone from the mortal realm, but because of the duty charged you, you can change your form as it is needed. The flesh is the spirit, and the spirit is the flesh. You are more whole than you were, because your flesh is now wedded to your soul. I nodded. I understood without understanding, because this was nothing empirical. As to who will perform this task after you have gone, I do not know. Perhaps no one. But those souls cannot be left to wander forever. Maybe someone else will come. And what if they do not? I asked. He shrugged. It is not within my power to decide what should happen, he said sadly. I wish it was. For these souls should not be left alone in the Ethereals, like children knocked out in the snow. One day I visited Solomon in the Temple of Lights, and I said to him that I should put my mortal affairs in order in preparation for the end of my service. 20 years had gone hence, and my house, my property, my money were collecting dust. He nodded and smiled. I returned to the mortal realm, and it was strange and distant to me. I had been too long gone. Money was of no use to me now. Rather than selling any of my property, I opted to pay the mortgage off on my home in Seattle, and I donated the house. I donated my furniture, my machines, my art. These with much sadness, for they had brought me joy when I inhabited the physical realm, my clothes and my books, and my money. All I saved was a backpack of clothing, $20,000 in American dollars, and enough money to return to the Far East when I had finished. It was all so painless that I was surprised, but then, no less surprising, was the work I had undertaken for the sake of even one day of peace. I returned to the Ethereals, and I continued my work. I worked and I worked until the day came that Solomon announced an end to my service. I received the news with simultaneous joy and great sadness. I knew that in the realm of the One I would find joy and peace and reunion with those who had died, including the one I had loved best of them all. But I knew also that without me, the souls who passed Etzion-Geber would remain lost in the ethereal realm, possibly forever, without one to guide them. I confided these conflicting feelings to Solomon and Uriel. Solomon just smiled, but Uriel nodded. I think I know what to do, he said. He guided me to the realm of the One, and we returned to the brightly lit court that I had only attended once before, after I had passed the Sunfallen Road. This time it was filled with people of all appearances. I looked at them one by one, and I realized that some of them were gods I had recognized in myths on Earth. Not all of them were familiar, but the same light shone in all their eyes, regardless of pale or ebony skin, blue eyes or brown, tall or short. Uriel and I bowed before them. Then and there he informed the one of the service I had rendered and explained to them my dilemma. One of the people present, a tall woman with dark skin and golden eyes, smiled at me. You long for peace, but you wish for a way to carry these souls to the other side now that your service is over, yes? I nodded. But there is an easy way to do this, my child, said another of them, this one a lithe, olive-skinned man wearing a blue robe, and he stepped forward and took my hands. What is it? I asked him. Remain here, in the realm of the One, and when other souls pass the Sunfallen Road, if they do not survive, you can return to the ethereal plane to guide them here. I looked at the man in whose hands mine were held. Can you empower me to do this? He laughed. Of course, if that is what you wish. When you are not ferrying souls, you will live here and be reunited with the ones who have gone before you. I looked at all of them. There is nothing more that I want, I said, and the cries of laughter and joy were almost more than I could bear. Chapter 32. And so now I am sitting here in a hotel in Chicago, in the city that brought me so much joy and so much grief, in the city that sent me on my journey to planes that most people only ever imagine. I walk in those worlds, and it is now at the end of my mortal existence that I write these words. It no longer seems impossible to me, my journey. I know that when I return to the Far East, I will pass into a realm of peace and joy, and I will ferry the lost spirits to the other side where they can find the same. All the same, sometimes my long life troubles me in a way I cannot describe. I went from being a mortal to being a vampire to being a servant of divine forces that I had never before believed in, not even when I was a young human girl. And now I know. What I discovered also is that divine beings are not omnipotent. The work they do is endless, and yet they need mortal beings to carry out immortal plans. No being controls everything. Without the choices we make, they are helpless to perform their functions. Tomorrow I will return to those realms, and I will once again see those who were most beloved to me. Silver, my parents, Klaus. I will remain with them until the end of time and beyond. I will know peace.